Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast in Game 3 in this series between Tarson versus Grubby. Game 3 taking place on Metalopolis. Tarson spawning this time as the blue Terran player at the 9 o'clock position, and across this gap, across this aerial gap here, we have Grubby, the green Protoss, spawning here at the 7 or 6 o'clock position. So this is once again going to be Terran versus Protoss, and we'll see how these players particularly play StarCraft 2. Grubby, as you already know, if you guys are watching this game as part of the series, Grubby, a very well-known Warcraft 3 player. I think his nickname was the King of Orc. So just a very, very well-known Grubby player, probably the only other player more well-known or in the same class in terms of rivalries is Moon. I'm not sure if he's making the transition into Warcraft 3 though. I haven't heard, or sorry, into StarCraft 2. I haven't heard, but I will keep you guys updated on that, as I know some of you guys are Warcraft 3 fans who are also enjoying the growth of StarCraft 2 and real-time strategy games. Tarson currently setting up the barracks over here. Will be able to upgrade to an orbital command at around the 15 food mark, should be getting a refinery, and that's a pretty standard build. Now, what I've seen from Tarson so far is that Tarson likes to go for a barracks. He then likes to go into a factory, train up 3 Marines, add a reactor, train a Hellion, and then go into a starport as that factory builds a tech lab, and then try to use an early Banshee in order to scout. This would work out pretty well, especially based upon the spawning locations here on Metalopolis, because of the short flying distance between these two maps, or these two spawning locations here. We already have that refinery coming into play, and we should also get another supply depot from Tarson in just a moment, as a Marine now going to make its way over here, and also Tarson going to luck out as that probe has, in fact, it will be scouting out this location and now trying to come back down the ramp, and that means that this one Marine will be able to guard that ramp and that choke point in time before the probe is going to be able to get into there. Supply depot now being built off in the shadows. So a very important maneuver here to make sure that no pylons, no units are warped in here or dropped into this location, and then all of a sudden start rushing out. We should be seeing a factory in just a second. There we go. There's that factory. As I believe the Marine, did the Marine actually get the kill? Yes, the Marine got the kill on that upcoming probe. We can see a Zealot now making its way out, but the SCV does have faster movement speed. The Zealot will at most get 2 rounds of attack onto a SCV, and now the SCV is going to be able to wander around pretty freely inside the space. Sees that there is double assimilators down, so we'll see what exactly Grubby wants to do with that double assimilators. Grubby will be very careful to make sure that that SCV is out of the base before building any additional critical tech buildings. Now SCV will be making its way out. There are 3 Marines here. There is that reactor. Here is that factory. On cue, let's build a Hellion and then also build a starport. So there's the Hellion, there's the starport. So yeah, a pretty standard build already, as that SCV running away from the Zealot. The Zealot now activating the Zelnaga Watchtower. 3 Marines on that high ground. Gonna start double training Marines. As soon as that Hellion is out, imagine that there would be a tech lab there for that tech lab swap. A very, very tight build order coming in from Tarson. Grubby now going in for a robotics facility and another gateway robotics facility, obviously for that early observer. The early observer should be able to give sight into the base of Tarson, or will be able to give sight into the base of Tarson, as long as it is not revealed. We may lift off that starport, do a tech lab swap right there, and now start training. Is it going to be a Banshee or a Raven? And it is going to be a Raven first, so he is now opting to go for a Raven first instead of a Banshee, and that early Raven is a very, very smart call. I like that play, just because the observer wants to keep track of what is happening inside the base, and the Raven will then reveal that observer. As soon as it reveals the observer, the Marines will be able to shoot it down, and that is a very critical play, as a Hellion now makes its way into this location here and will quickly scout out Grubby's expansion. So by scouting out Grubby's expansion, most likely Tarson knows that he needs to set up an expansion of his own, as the observer is now inside. This is going to become very, very bad if the observer does not realize, if it gets too close to those Marines. Is it going to get shot down? It looks like it is going to get shot down. It looks like that observer not going to be able to escape in time at all. Down to 12 hit points already, and down it goes. So a very expensive observer, 25 minerals, 75 gas. Already shot down this early in the game, and things are not boding well for Grubby at this stage. We are getting a Banshee now, and siege tanks are currently being trained without siege tech. And that is a very, very important thing to see, that that Tarson is deciding to mass up siege tanks even though he doesn't have siege tech just quite yet. That is important because it allows him to defend against any early stalker and zealot aggression. The Raven now in the air, and sees another observer. The observer, however, just fast enough in order to run away from those Marines. Marines are now pulling away. The siege tech is still not done, and I believe this one pylon is going to get quickly destroyed, as there is also a Banshee now joining in on that fight. So one building already taken down. Stalkers may try to come over as well, get some damage, and that Banshee with a range of 6 has to play very, very carefully in order to try to fight back. No siege tech. And this is going to be an issue. Tarson should have started that siege tech some time ago. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to charge up that ramp. Grubby will lose this natural expansion, but with no serious probe losses here, it's not going to be that big of a loss. Just balancing out the game just a little bit more as a Marine, and there are some SCVs as well. So the Stalkers continuing to get a little bit of damage. Siege tanks deciding to back off, and still no siege tech just quite yet. Tarson has more than enough minerals and gas for siege tech, and still not researching it. We are getting Colossus now, as that observer is still wandering around. Grubby also having a probe on the far side of the map, as the SCVs are now just trying to sit back in their base and trying to regroup. So this is going to be a regrouping of sorts, as a command center now being built in an uncharacteristic location at the 11 or 10 o'clock high ground expansion. So instead of expanding to his natural expansion, he's expanding over here, and Grubby is not going to know about this expansion for quite some time. And the longer this game goes, the better it is going to be for... Yeah, there we go. The better it's going to be for Tarson, as Tarson is going to be able to get a lot of damage. Back over here, the Banshees already getting some kills, looking like they want to get even more probe kills, and they're going to just come in and get a lot of damage. It only takes one shot in order for them to be able to shoot down a unit, and the Stalkers trying to catch up, unable to do so, and those Banshees flying away once more. So only a couple probe kills there, as siege tech is now finally being researched, Vikings now being added. So with 2 Banshees in the air without cloaking research, those Banshees are going to be very key and very important in trying to shoot down Stalkers. They have a very high DPS and also counter Immortals very well. The Banshees also deal more damage per second, I believe, than Vikings. I believe they actually deal more damage per second than Vikings. I'll have to double check those numbers for you, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. I think it's 20 damage a second versus 14 damage a second. And now, the command center going to reposition itself there. And did the observer or the probe catch sight of it? Yes, it did catch sight of that expansion there. So Grubby knows that he does need to expand, otherwise he is going to fall behind. Probe now wandering around the map still at this stage in the game. Probe still being trained on both sides, SCVs and Probe still being trained on both sides, as there are now a lot of SCVs over here upgrading to an orbital command. And now, as we are also getting another command center here, so Tarson sitting very, very pretty at this stage. Zealots now going to make their way straight into this base and perhaps get some SCV kills very, very easily. So now just running straight in, one SCV going to get taken down. The rest of those SCVs are going to be able to run away, as Tarson now lifts off his orbital command, and the Banshee's coming back in, and running straight into a group of Stalkers. One Banshee, barely able to escape, down to 10 hit points. Light armor for the win, as those Stalkers only deal 10 damage per attack as opposed to 14. The Banshee's now going to quickly shut down this probe over here, making sure that it does not reveal any additional sight, and already getting destroyed as the Banshees are once again on the move. Pylon on that high ground, as Stalkers and Colossus still being added. We are getting the Twilight Council as well, so that Twilight Council going to round out the tech. Only need a Stargate in order to get all 3 of those I guess tier 3 buildings, not the 3.5, but the tier 3 buildings, as a Hellion now on the way as well. Trying to return home, will be able to return home in just a second. Tarson still training up a lot of SCVs, and he should be able to lift off and establish this base in just a moment. Banshee's now hanging out at every corner of the map, making sure that Grubby is still running off of 2 bases, and I think Grubby is going to have a very difficult time trying to break free Tarson just sitting back and relaxing. He doesn't want to be too aggressive. He just wants to know that he has his opponent contained. And then if he can just simply out macro, establish a new expansion here, he should be able to eventually get the win. Grubby does have a high ground pylon here, which has not been discovered, I don't think. Otherwise, Tarson would just try to come in and destroy it. And that one high ground pylon there, Stalker's now on the move, and it looks like the Hellion will quickly, yes, he does spot that high ground pylon, going to try to destroy it there in just a moment. And Zealots or Stalkers may try to warp in as well, as now we are going to get some Marauders making their way over. The Marauders are going to shut down that pylon as this expansion going to get re-established, ensuring that no Zealots will be warped in along the side to deal more damage. The Blue Flame research now being researched. I'm not quite sure what the Marauders want to do. The Hellion needs to drive over in order to gain sight. Oh, a waste of a scanner sweep there, as that Hellion could have just driven over and offered the sight. We now have Stalkers making their way over, and also a lot of Vikings here. So the Vikings need to be very careful, otherwise they're going to get shot down by those Stalkers. The Stalkers are already getting a lot of damage, and it looks like the Raven dropping a point defense drone just in time. The Viking now being left behind in order to make sure that the Stalkers focus on that, and now this Raven, the very expensive Raven, needs to perhaps get some additional, become repaired there. No Seeker Missile research just quite yet. Yeah, so no Seeker Missile just quite yet. The Raven looks like it will get repaired at some point. That is a very expensive unit, a very gas-heavy unit, but it is a detector and a flying spellcaster all at the same time. Point defense drones, or PDDs, absorbing a lot of damage. Stalkers now making their way up the ramp, but they're going to quickly find themselves in a very difficult situation as the Marauders and Marines quickly come in and try to deal even more damage. Tarson does not have, does he have, no concussive shell and no stim pack. So those Stalkers have to be very, very careful. What is he doing? Why did he finally blinking away with those Stalkers? So God has to be very, very careful. That Stalker, he wants to make sure to blink away from the engagement as opposed to blinking towards the attack. You saw what happened there when he blinked into the fight in order to try to close in on that distance. The Marines and the Marauders were quickly there to intercept, and without another quick blink because of the cooldown, was not able to pull away in time. Grubby now trying to run off of 3 bases, will be running off of 3 bases in just a moment, as the Mobius reactor is now being researched. So we are going to be getting some EMP shockwaves, a very, very critical EMP shockwaves, especially if we get any additional Immortals or a lot of gateway units. The EMP shockwave depletes all the shields, removing or depletes 100 shields very, very easily, depleting all the shields of sentries, Stalkers, Zealots, and High Templar and Dark Templar as well. The only units Immortals as well. Colossus, one of the few units that actually has more than 100 shields, so it will then just continue to take more damage as Hellion's now trying to come in. Hellion's quickly trying to come in, and it looks like, maybe 1 or 2 probe kills at the most. Not a very effective Hellion run or Hellion raid at all, as another sensor tower is being placed down. So Tarson, with that Venn diagram, pretty much has an early warning system of all units that try to come inside his base. You can see now what's happening. A Stalker trying to fight back against a swarm of, very nice blink. Able to, Grubby able to save that one Stalker there, blinking across that gap, and ensuring that he will be able to live and fight another day. Stalker's now getting the level 2 weapons upgrade, as more Colossus being trained, and another gateway being warped in as well. We are getting, 7 gateways? The warp gate research, the Cybernetics Corps not researching anything, so I'm not going to expect to see any Protoss air anytime soon, as the Colossus and the Protoss ground weapons are still being researched. At this stage, Grubby really needs to perhaps transition away into a different strategy, and perhaps start researching into some High Templar. The High Templar and the Colossus are both very effective against ground armies, but Tarson is with a very, very heavy macro style of play in Terran, just slowly macroing up. He doesn't have that many upgrades though, so that is going to be a problem, as the ground army of Grubby has 2-0 upgrades, but I believe the sheer size of Tarson's army may be too much for Grubby to deal with, as more and more gateways are still being warped in. Tarson has a much stronger army. Colossus now coming in to engage. Psystorm now cast underneath all of those Vikings, as they continue to just try to move back and forth. as those units are now trying to pull away. Once again, the Vikings have taken a lot of damage. EMP Shockwave now getting a lot of damage as well, reducing all the shields as the Stalkers are trying to engage once again. I believe those Vikings are now moving a little bit too far, as those High Templars are just going to be sitting there for a little bit of time, waiting to get enough energy. There is no amulet research any longer. Those High Templars need to wait and see how much damage they can do. The Marines and the Marauders simply walking up the ramp now. Some hot Psy Storms already coming into place. Siege Tanks blasting away. Immortals now coming in as well, as those High Templars don't have enough energy just quite yet. One Raven in the air. Point defense drones now quickly running out of energy, as well as a Colossus continues to battle it out. More Zealots. Zealots do have charge, so they're going to be able to zero in very, very easily, as the Zealots now going straight for the Siege Tanks. Those Siege Tanks now blasting away as the Warp Gates are going to start to take more and more damage. Colossus on that high ground should be able to start cleaning up those units, and oh, as soon as it attacked, it did reveal the Colossus there, as that Colossus is considered also an air unit, allowing it, as soon as it attacks, to be revealed. And that's why the Siege Tanks were able to blast it out of the sky or off the ground, even though there was no scanner sweep. He didn't need that scanner sweep. We can see that the High Templar currently would like to get a Psy Storm here, as the Zealots now charging in once again. EMP Shockwave depleting all the shields. The Zealots able to finish off the rest of this attack. And the point defense drones now once again out of energy, and those point defense drones just doing a great job absorbing attack after attack. They still have plenty of life and duration on them. So, and point defense drone also recharge energy at twice the rate of normal spellcasters, so that is the reason why they are able to get that much energy up very easily, very quickly. And now, are we going to get a Psy Storm there? Oh, that High Templar has to be very, very careful. High Templar now trying to move away. Is he going to get a Psy Storm off? No, not getting the Psy Storm off in time. Archons now simply trying to attack, move into this position, getting some damage against those Siege Tanks. But those Archons taking so much splash damage, it doesn't really matter, and I believe Grubby is going to lose this game as well. Probes now being trying to transfer over here to the low ground. We have this expansion now getting Hellion rated, and many probes are being sacrificed and lost there. Down it goes, and Grubby, this is the end for him. He will not be able to macro up enough large enough army. The Siege Tanks of Tarson not even upgraded. 0 upgrades, but Tarson being very, very just on top of his macro, able to churn out an army 2,000 to 3,000 minerals larger than Grubby. And as this war of attrition is taking its toll, even if Tarson trades his army against Grubby's at this stage, he's going to be able to come out ahead. You can see another point defense drone in the air, just intercepting so many attacks. And now an SCV, that Siege Tank, I'm calling out for an SCV to repair it, but I do think that the Siege Tanks are just going to continue to roll out and simply attack, move, and be able to finish this game. Grubby still has a decent number of gateways, still has a Colossus. The Colossus is upgraded to 1, but too many of those units, too many of the Colossus, and there's just no way that Grubby can churn out an army fast enough. If he does try to churn out an army quickly, or try to mass up a large enough army and not defend his units or his buildings, he will just lose his buildings, and that would be the end of it. And a Colossus now trying to run away from a Viking. That one Viking able to just shut down that Colossus there. Tarson using a very low hit point Raven as sight for those Siege Tanks. Hellion's now going to perhaps try to raid up that ramp in just a moment. There is a Photon Cannon here. High Templars once again being warped in and waiting for enough energy as those as these Hellions continue to just burn away through many of those Stalkers and those Probes. Probes now being transferred over here to the low ground expansion, and I think Grubby just needs to say GG at some point. The Stalkers are gonna make their way over and get some damage, more of a token move to try to get some kills on the SCV line and trying to get some damage onto those units here. The Planetary Fortress only with a range of 6, unable to shoot back against those Stalkers, as the Stalkers are just beyond combat range, as those Siege Tanks are continuing to slowly make their push up this ramp. Siege Tanks perhaps going to siege up right here. Archon's now coming in, and now in comes this Archon. Archon trying to blow their way through these Siege Tanks. A Psy Storm finally being cast there. High Templar, not enough energy, and the Zealots need to make their way over as well. Perhaps the Amulet research should help the regeneration rate or the energy gather rate 4 High Templars. So it's on like a focus crystal, and those High Templars, I never realized how much time it actually takes to gather 25 energy in order to make a High Templar actually useful. Oh, probes trying to run away. It looks like those Hellions are not going to be able to find those probes, and there's the GG. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this 1v1 replay. And Tarson versus Grubby, a 3-game series. Turned out it was a best of 5 series, and Tarson taking all 3 games against Grubby.